Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and today we have another individual running for City Council, 3rd District at large, uh, Melissa Hazley. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.
Melissa, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, because when I first had some engagement with you, I thought, I don't know what's wrong with me, that that you was Charles's daughter, and you corrected me. And so tell our audience, where you grew up, and little intimate look at who you are, and then we'll go into whatever.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Melissa Patterson Hazley, and I was born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm a product of Kansas City Public Schools, proud graduate. I went to Mary Harmon Weeks, Southeast Middle, and Southwest High School. My grandmother actually lived behind Weeks, so we walked to school every morning. My mother would drop us off either that morning or the night before. We walked to school. So I've been in Kansas City, all my life. Briefly, I moved out of town for work, and then eventually for graduate school. So for work every day, I'm an education researcher. I do research projects for school districts, nonprofits, sometimes government entities, but along with my profession, I've been very active in the community. Mostly, I've managed several campaigns. Most recently, I managed a campaign for the $50 million housing bond, and I managed the earnings tax, and a number of other bond questions. I am active in city government. I serve on a number of economic development boards. And so I've really gotten to know City Hall just because of my interest in politics. I first got interested in politics as a youngster, about 18, 19 years old, when I realized that, people who are elected officials make rules and decide how to spend money. So I got intrigued by that. My undergraduate work was actually a campaign for myself, a 3rd district at large, matter of fact. And It's a terrible campaign, terrible campaign now that I actually run campaigns. So I've always been interested in it for a long time, and I've been blessed to be involved, in a number of political and community activities in Kansas City. And so I have decided to run for office. I feel like I'm prepared for the job. I feel like that I have collaborated with leaders and neighborhood folks and regular people all across Kansas City, from the Northland to the Southland to everywhere in between. And so this is a passion of mine, and I'm really excited to talk to you about some of my ideas and also hear from you, your thoughts.
Excellent. I think that was the 411 on who you are. My mind rambles, and so I know that. So there's one main question that I want to ask you, and from your resume, you really understand finance, and your involvement with elections and campaigns, you really understand that. Cascade Media Group, for the last, I think, 18 months, I've been looking at our community situation. I'm not just talking about Kansas City. I'm talking about people of color, and the discussions we have about how we solve and have a seat at the table, essentially. And block voting and group economics are the only way that we can achieve that. And that's a simple deal. And why haven't we achieved it? I'm in media. I know why we haven't achieved it. But uh, the candidates and politicians that I'm coming in contact with uh, as of late, I would be remiss if I'm not mentioning that's the only road to success. Like all roads lead to Rome,
Mm-hmm.
all roads lead to that ballot box and who represents you
Right.
and what their understanding of power is. What has uh, people of color in the bind that we're in is that we do not have a seat at the table. Now, I'm doing a diatribe somewhat, but all I can go is from my experience. And I'm 71 and I moved here in 78.
Mm-hmm.
And most of you young people have never seen Black people flex their muscle in a political way. I'm from New York and it wasn't going on in New York at that that time on the level where you could know your local politician and you could really get involved in a real meaningful way. I haven't been uh I've been critical of Freedom Inc., but when I came here, Freedom Inc. was at every, whether it was the school board, whether it was the county, whether it was the city, there was no meals being served here in Kansas City without the Black community having a seat at the table represented through Freedom. I would be remiss if I don't point that out because people know how I feel about freedom. Freedom know how I feel about freedom. But group economics and block voting is the only way that we're going to solve our problem. I'm gonna leave it at that. What is your platform? And the last thing I want to say on that, do you agree or disagree with my assessment?
No, I completely agree with your assessment when it comes to Black voting. We see that here in Kansas City, especially with other. So every group in Kansas City or across the United States has a point of view. They have unique needs, and that community knows what their needs are. But when they don't have a critical mass of people that can help get someone elected to represent them, then it is very difficult for their needs to get met because they don't have representation in those vestiges of power. And so, yeah, I mean, Freedom has a long history. It's 60 years old. I was a proud host of our 60th brunch, so you know where I stand with the organization. But it's critical. I mean, and and stay with the word critical, for those that are critical of the organization, what I always say is get involved. You know, you're critical of the presidency, you don't get rid of the office, although they're having a hard time seating the speaker right now. But you don't do away with something that is a means to an end and how you get resources into your community. And so I think that critical mass of voters, whoever they might be, it behooves them to come together. You know, you're not going to agree on 100% of everything. You know, elections are competitive, endorsements are competitive. You know, there's a finite amount of resources to help any one person get elected. So there's going to be a disconsensus at certain periods in time. But I think it's important to stay in the fight. You know, don't take your ball and go home. So I'm with you 100% in terms of the importance and the outcomes that we can achieve as a community with group economics, consensus building, and being tight, even geographically. You know, we have a lot of population movement in the city, and that's going to impact our politics. Period. Whether you like it or not. I mean, the types of development that we do in our communities. You know, when we do the development, how we diversify the types of development that we have. That is going to impact our political power and the political process. So it's definitely something that we need to keep our eyes on. It's something that I value. I actually keep in community with people that are much older than me because I want to learn. They were around for all the fun stuff, from my perspective. I hear all these stories and this happened and that happened, and it's very exciting. And so I like keeping those kind of people around and keeping those kind of people in my life, because there's so much to be learned from what already happened. I could be going through something crazy, something critical, and then I talk to a couple of my buddies, that are 30 years older than me, and they telling me stories that blows my little problem out of the water. And so that's important to me. So an organization like Freedom represents that. They represent an old school, people that can tell you 50, 11 stories to help you get through whatever it is you're going through in the moment. And that's something that I value.
uh what she's saying resonates with me to a degree. As I said, I came here in 78 and I moved over in Sheridan Estates, and Julia Hill was on that. I always been who I am. And Julia said, Carlos, get over here to my house. You're supposed to work inside the organization. You can't make no changes outside, and that's just what you said. But again, I'm a maverick, and I want to be my own man, my own everything. And I really didn't know that you had that type of experience.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of our community, uh, especially north of the river, they might not. And a lot we have quite a bit of viewership north of the river. When you look at the, uh, they might not know about you, and you are running at large.
Right.
Uh, tell me a little bit, and our audience a little bit about your family life.
My family life. So I'm a mom. My daughter is 10 years old. I'm married. I've been married for a long time. I'm not gonna say how long because I'm not trying to give away my age. But my daughter is she's studying Mandarin. She's been studying Mandarin since kindergarten. She's the light of me and my husband's life. She's a lot of fun. She's very smart. I tell people that my daughter is me times 10. I mean, she's everything better than me, and I love myself, I'm a great person, but she's everything better than me. And so I'm really proud of her. She's on the campaign trail. We were playing a trivia game a few weeks ago, and it's what do you know about me? And so I was like, now, don't be mad if I get some stuff wrong. And so she picked on mine, if you could choose a job, what would you choose? And it was banker, architect, politician, and one other job. And she didn't know what an architect was. So I explained it to her. And so she got my right and she picked politician. And then when I did hers, I got hers wrong. I said she would want to be a chef. And so but she picked politician. And I was just pleasantly surprised. Like, kids are watching, what you're doing. And of course, my husband is the math whiz. He's a systems engineer. And so he's really imparted on her, a love of numbers and not being afraid of math and calculating stuff. When we're sitting at the dinner table, she wants to practice multiplication problems. So yeah, that's family life. Family life is kind of, normal, you know, just mundane, going ice skating, going to the movies, um, stuff like that, family stuff.
Before we close out, do you think that uh, our community is getting its fair share of the development money that has come into Kansas City?
I think, well, I've been all over the city. You mentioned the Northland. So when I talk to Northlanders, there's a strong sense that they are not getting their fair share. And I was surprised to learn that, some of the point of view in the Northland is very similar to the point of view in the third district. And so, the type of leader that I want to be is to find, what are those moments of agreement? What are those moments of collaboration? Because there are a lot of them if you listen close enough. So are we getting our fair share in the third district? We have statistically the most rental units. We statistically have the most affordable housing. We statistically have the most vacant lots. We statistically need the most sidewalks that are old or just have not been present. I think that there's a lot of progress that we are making in our community because of some of the work that the Urban Summit and Freedom Incorporated has done, and also putting people in position on different boards and commissions, helping people get elected. We've made a lot of progress, actually. I serve on a handful of economic development boards, and in just 5 years, I've helped to facilitate over $400 million in economic development projects in the third district, particularly most of them along Prospect. But you still can drive down the street and feel like, it's a lot to be done, because there is. It's like spitting on a fire. So because it's been neglected for so long. But I say all that to say we're making progress. We're seeing buildings come out of the ground. You drive past 18 Divine, you see buildings coming out of the ground. You see brand new daycare centers, Emmanuel Daycare, Emmanuel Family Child Development Center lit up at night beautifully.
Yeah, my boy Myron. Myron is doing the damn thing.
Myron has a 24-hour one where he's about to put, I understand, a dental clinic in there. Dentistry is difficult for our community to access. That's going to be a real community asset for us when it's all said and done. So for as much as work that we need to do wherever you live in this community, progress is being made. And we can build upon it with the right leadership, collaborative leadership, prepared leadership, committed leadership, which is what I plan to bring if I'm elected to city council.
Let me say this. The thing that stood out in all of what you just talked about was the Northland. When I say that, they have been complaining that they've been a stepchild for some time, and everything has their population is increasing and it's becoming more diverse and what have you. But what struck me is how you bridge that gap, saying we can collaborate because you're not the only one, and if we collaborate, the third district and we can get a lot of things done for both. That struck me out of everything you said.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, it's time to close this damn thing out.
All right.
Do you have any closing words for our audience?
Yeah, so I am Melissa Patterson Hazley. I'm running for City Council, 3rd District at large. Although the 3rd District is obviously the apple of my eye, and I'm going to be definitely focused on the 3rd District, I will be a council person that is responsive across the city, whether that's helping to renew or renovate the Bay Water Park in South Kansas City, or help the Northlanders get a road paved to a data center they're going to open, or dealing with Midtown housing diversification. I plan to be the kind of council person that you call if you want something done. So I hope that you will consider supporting me on April 4th. My website is mph4kcmo.com. Please check me out and drop me a line if ever you want to get in touch. I'm happy to talk and happy to listen to your ideas. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Sound a little scripted, but you got it down pat. And
I have no notes.
When I say scripted, what I'm saying is off the top of your, like the things I say, I have no notes, can't really spell off the top of my head. And that's when I say scripted. You know what you believe in. So it's like you giving it from the heart. Now I want to make one of my main partners. He is a co-founder of What's Up Kansas City, James Watts. I like to make him mad. When he does the show, he closes like this. It was a plum pleasing pleasure to have you on the show, Miss Hazley. And I steal his closing, but this is our closing. When you invest in your community, you really investing in yourself. Good day.
Thank you.
Program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.